I finally found out who SA'd me. It was my brother all along. Me and my brother, whose name is Paul, have always been really close. I'm 18 and he is 23, but even with the age gap it's always been us. We'd never get called separately, it'd always be, go get the kids, or the kids want to do this, they want to do that. We were always together, even when I was a baby. He's my best friend, and I'd die for him. I say that so you don't think I just hate him, or I'm saying this just to say it. But on Saturday, he invited me to hang out with a couple of his friends. My 18th was Friday, and he's always wanted to be the one to take me to my first bar. We went out at around 7 p.m., and right when we got there they crowded me into a booth and we started drinking. I don't remember how much I had, and I don't remember when we left, but I know about 30 minutes in, things started to feel off. I was only on my first pint, but it felt like I did so much more and I've drank before, so I know how I should be responding by now, and I was definitely more drunk than I'd usually be. We left sometime after, and I know I was brought back home somehow. I can remember being helped up the porch steps. I don't remember anything else until I woke up the next day, and it felt like I'd been hit by a bus. I spent the entire morning on the toilet, and it was almost impossible to walk. It hurt so badly. It wasn't until evening when I could leave my room. I asked my brother what had happened last night, and he said we'd been at the pub then went home. I pressed him for more and he got snippy, saying I shouldn't have gotten plastered if I wanted every detail. I told him I couldn't remember shit, and he said it was my fault, and not his problem. I don't know why he was so agitated. We usually go on stellar with each other. But he left soon after and didn't talk to me the rest of the day. On Tuesday I realized I had bruises. I was showering, and they either hadn't formed last time or I didn't notice them, but this was the first time I'd seen them. They were on my wrists, hips, and the side of my neck, and I wouldn't have jumped to the conclusion I'd slept with someone that night if there weren't hickeys. They're on my thighs and around my stomach. There's no doubt what they are. Naturally I freaked out. I thought about telling my mom, but she didn't want me to go out with my brother that night in the first place, so I didn't want her to get upset with me. I went to my brother instead. I told him about the bruises, and he was going to kick me out of his room again. Then I told him about the hickeys and he immediately changed his mind. He seemed like he was hiding something, he got nervous, and asked to see. I showed him the ones I could, and he agreed after some hesitancy on what they were. I asked him what happened Saturday night again, and he blew up. He yelled to stop asking about that night, and said this had nothing to do with the pub and I'd probably gone out and done it myself after he got me home. He told me not to tell mom about the bruises, and to stop treating him like he knew something, and to get out of his room. So I left and I told my mom. She didn't have much of a reaction. She didn't even seem surprised. She told me she was going to take my brother out on a drive and to stay home, they'd be back soon. They stayed out so late I fell asleep. I only saw my mom again in the morning. She woke me up and told me she loved me, she'd never let anyone hurt me, and she was sorry. I still don't know what she was apologizing for. I went to school, things were normal, but I didn't see my brother all day, and didn't know if things were normal or I had got him in trouble. I sat my mom and brother down this morning and told them that I know they know something I don't. I wanted to know what happened that night. My mom started crying. She never cries. She yelled that my brother had to tell me before storming off to her room and slamming the door. I immediately asked my brother what she meant, and he got very nervous and accusatory. He said that this was all my fault, and mom's upset because I had fucked up that night, and I should be thankful because my brother picked up the pieces like he always does. My family never acts like this. Definitely not my brother. I was so confused and I pressed him further. Then he started to tell me what happened. He said that my drink was spiked and I went to the toilets to puke. I was there for a while, and when he went to find me he said that, in way more vulgar terms, there was a bloke trying to get his way with me. He said he took me home and that was that. I told him I didn't believe him. Only he and his friends ever had access to my drinks, and there's no way that what happened to me could have been done in a pub toilet. The evidence doesn't match that. I started to cry, and I told him I just wanted the truth. He said that he told me the truth, and I could either take it or leave it. I'm not happy with myself for this, but I told him I hated him. He was supposed to be my best friend and he was lying about something like this for no reason. I'm definitely not happy with myself for this either, but I asked him if he was lying because it was one of his friends. He called me crazy, and said I didn't know what I was talking about. So I asked him if he did anything. I wanted to throw up just saying the words. That made him start to scream. He said I was an idiot, and how dare I accuse him of that. He said he would kick my fucking teeth in if I ever even suggested something like that again. He said if I wanted to sleep with him that bad I could just say that. I couldn't handle him saying that, so I left. I went to my room and locked the door. A few hours on and I got a text from an unknown number. It said it was one of my brother's friends, he knew about the fight, and he wanted to come clean with what he knew, so I needed to call him. I did. And I really wish I hadn't. He started by saying he had no idea what had happened until my brother told him this morning, or else he would have told me sooner. My drink had been spiked by my brother. Apparently his friends just thought I was a lightweight, so they weren't concerned when I seemed to be getting drunker faster than them. We all got a taxi home, and the rest of what he knows is just what my brother told him. I'm just going to copy-paste the text because I don't think I could rewrite what he said without vomiting. So yeah, we had you guys drop off first and went home. Paul said he could take care of you himself, so we didn't really think we had to stick around, but in hindsight I really wish we had. I asked him if you were feeling alright Sunday and he said yeah, everything's cool, you were just a little hungover. But yeah, he messaged me after you guys had your argument and told me what really happened. Are you sure you want to know? Paul said he had sex with you and he claimed to be insanely plastered, but he seemed the most clear-headed out of all of us that night. He said you didn't care what was happening, so he thought it was alright, but that just seems sick in my mind. I'm sorry no one told you sooner. I don't think Shane knows what happened, but Paul should have told you. I don't know if that's normal for you guys, but either way it just seemed wrong because you were obviously drunk. Like losing consciousness from time to time. He said he gave you something else when you guys got home, but he didn't tell me and I didn't ask. I haven't been able to do anything but just stare at the screen. I haven't left my room. I've been sick 3 times already. Whenever I hear my brother going down the hall, I just feel so much dread. I don't know what to do. I don't know how he could have done this to me. I'm his fucking sister. We were supposed to be best friends. I trusted him, and I still do, but I just don't know anymore. I'm so torn between what to feel about him. He's my family, but I hate what he's done. I don't think I could ever forgive him. I haven't been able to leave. I don't know if I should tell my mom because I think she already knows. I'm at such a loss. My family loves each other. We've always been insanely close. I just don't know what to do. On one hand, I really do want to believe he was just drunk and didn't know what he was doing, but I just don't know. I'm going to talk to my brother tomorrow, show him the text from his friend and see if he'll just admit it. I'm going to the hospital soon, too, just in case there's anything that can still be done in that regard. People said to tell his girlfriend. I'll figure out a way to reach her. I don't think he really loves her anyways. If anyone wants any other updates, I will give them, but if not, this is where the stories end for now. It's late. I'm tired. I regret ever posting here. I want to leave my girlfriend who was roped. I realize right up front that I'm going to come across as a jerk and I will probably get lots of hate for this, but I'm looking for all points of view. Also, this is going to be very long because I just don't know what to leave out and honestly I need to vent some. Here is the story. A year ago, actually a year and a month ago, my girlfriend was roped as she was leaving work. Thankfully she was not unalived, however her attacker did threaten her with a weapon. Fortunately the store she works at had cameras in the parking lot, and between them getting video of the attack and the bank across the street getting the attacker's car on camera, the police were able to catch him within a day. Between the video and DNA testing, he did not even contest, he just pleaded guilty in exchange for not receiving the max. Since there were aggravating circumstances, the weapon, the judge gave him a 20-year sentence, and with time for good behavior he can be out in about 10 years, give or take. I tell you all of that to make it clear that her attacker is no longer a threat. She doesn't have to fear him coming back for her at least for 10 years or so. Obviously this was a very traumatic event in her life, and while I was not a victim per se, it was also very traumatic for me as well. I can't imagine what she has gone through, and I don't compare my situation to her at all. But I have had severe bouts of depression because I couldn't protect her, and knowing someone else was harming her sometimes was almost more than I could handle. Right after the incident she did not want to see me. I get that, it hurt, but I understood. Her parents picked her up from the hospital and I did not see or hear from her for a week, which I sort of get, but I think I could have gotten a text or something just saying she was okay. Finally a week and her sister calls me and lets me know that she is staying with her parents and she will be calling me in a couple of days. She never called me. Instead I once again get a text from her sister saying she would like me to come over for a few minutes so we can talk. I get up and go over and am greeted at the door by her mother, who very calmly and very coldly starts laying out to me how I am to act and what I am to say. I am further instructed to not attempt to make any physical contact with her, as in hug or anything. Okay, again I get it, major trauma. I'm sure they have been coached by therapists/counselors or something in what to say and do around her, so I play along. I walk in and she is sitting on a chair with her dad standing next to her and her sister sitting on the couch. As I walk in the room, the sister starts talking and telling me that my girlfriend wants me to know that she is okay, but obviously she has been traumatized and appreciates my understanding in her recovery. She never said one single word to me and barely looked at me. Again, this was right after the event and I'm understanding that this is how it has to be. But honest to God, that entire conversation was just awkward as hell. I leave, go home and attempt to focus on how I can help her. I start Googling how to deal with a rope survivor and what I can expect. She starts going to therapy initially 2 times a week, then after 2 months it goes down to 1 day a week. In the meantime she finally makes contact with me and asks to meet at a coffee shop. I get there and she is already there and waiting. At this point in time they had her so medicated that I was dealing with a zombie for the most part. There was no emotion and she was very methodical in her speech. Basically she wanted to get together that day to tell me that she couldn't go out with me for a while until she got past some issues she was dealing with. Of course I told her I understood. This was almost a month after the attack and this was our first conversation by ourselves, so I was already living under this assumption. I told her I would be there for her and that whatever she needed, whether that be space or a shoulder to cry on or anything, I was there for her. I started to tell her that I loved her and she stopped me. She told me that right now she didn't want to hear that and that I had to respect her wishes. I was once again a little hurt and frankly surprised, but I said whatever she wanted. She starts texting me the next day. Little things, nothing important, but I think it is a big step in getting back to where we were. This goes on for another month and a half. I finally asked her at the month and a half mark if we could meet for dinner. She didn't reply for 2 days and then said that she had to wait for to talk to her therapist. Finally she agrees to this but sets the date for another month away. Now mind you, this is almost 4 months after the attack and so far I've had 1 physical conversation with her in person and 1 bizarre conversation with her and her family. Oh yay, I need to mention this. I am not being updated on her progress by anyone. Granted, I realize that I am not officially family nor am I entitled to do anything, but it would have been nice to just get a text or call or something from someone telling me that she was doing good in therapy or was not or anything. We go out to eat at a small bistro that we ate at all of the time. I met her there and I was waiting for her to show up. After sitting for a half hour waiting, I text to see what was up. I just get a text of on my way. She finally arrives and sits down. I ask her how she has been and she snapped at me and told me to not ask her personal questions. We ate and after dinner I wanted to just sit and talk because I missed the person I had talked to almost every day for the previous 3 years. But when she was done eating she said that she was ready to go home. I asked her if she could stay for just a few minutes to talk, but I could see that she was becoming physically anxious and I did not want to upset her, so I said that I loved her and missed her. She just walked away. She goes back to texting me the next day like nothing had been wrong. We actually start to see each other once a week for lunch and she is getting more and more comfortable with being out, so she sits and talks a while. She has also started a new job which she tells me about. This goes on for another 4 months. I'm happy to see her and all, but honestly I'm very lonely and we have not even so much as held hands. Then one day she doesn't show up for lunch. I text to see if she is okay. No reply. I call her parents to see if they know where she is and to make sure she is okay. I got the runaround from them, and by this time I'm starting to get upset because I don't want to know where she was at or anything, I just wanted to know if she was okay. After actually saying that, her mom says, yes she is okay but don't expect to hear from her for a while. Well, that makes me start to thinking she has had a relapse and is in the hospital. But what can I do? All I do is go home and try and take my mind off of it. 2 weeks pass with nothing from anybody. I'm trying my best to be reasonable here, but basically I call her sister and ask if she is still alive or what. She knew I was getting frustrated, so she apologizes, but that her sister told them to specifically not let me talk to her. At this point I break down. I don't know what I've done wrong here. I have not pushed her. I have not tried to get her to be with me in any way other than to just talk to me, and even then I have had very generic conversations so as to not upset her. I then get a text from her asking if I would meet with her at an address I wasn't familiar with, but once I looked it up I determined this was a therapist office. I am told be there at 4, which meant I had to leave work early to get there. I check in at the front desk and am told that the therapist wants to speak to me alone for a few minutes. She comes in and I now know where the parents were getting this from, because after formally greeting me she then started to provide me with a list of do's and don'ts. She then told me that my GF wanted to speak to me and had something to tell me. I go in and she is sitting on one chair and I am instructed to sit in the other. She has a box of tissues and has been crying. The therapist tells me that I am here because my girlfriend has something to tell me and that she wanted the safety of therapist office to feel safe. She then proceeds to tell me that the reason she did not meet me for lunch that day is because she was with another guy, somebody from her new job, and that they had been intimate with each other. She might as well have taken a weapon out and shot me. It couldn't have hurt anymore. I just drop my head and begin to cry. The therapist then pipes in with some logic about her taking back her sexuality since she was attacked and how this wasn't cheating in the same sense of cheating. My girlfriend then proceeds to tell me that she does not want to lose me and that she is just very messed up in the head and that it was a one-time thing and blah blah blah. I feel very trapped at that moment. I felt like I was ganged up on, and the more I set the matter I got. I finally just said to her, you haven't so much as held my hand in the past half year, yet you can go F some guy you met at work while I sit like an idiot waiting for my junior high like date. This of course caused her to go into hysterics and the therapist asked me to leave. I apologized and told her to text me if she wants to keep working this out. I get that text later that day. Now she is all chatty and crap telling me that this was the worst mistake of her life and please talk to her. I tell her that I don't know if I can go on with this but agree to meet her. I flat out tell her right up front when I see her that for me to even consider going forward with this that she has to cut this other guy off, period. She tells me that is impossible because they work together, and I tell her that I'm sorry but I won't even consider it if she is going to see this guy every day. She decides to find another job, and after talking with my sister who I have told everything to, she said that while it is not common, some women do attempt to have intimacy after being attacked so that they feel like they have power again. Now why I am not the one who she did this with I have no idea, but I know I feel like I am being punished for something I did not even do. She changes jobs and we go back to our lunches, and I do this twice when I tell her that I am getting a little tired of just meeting for lunch and doing nothing else, so she agrees to come over to watch TV with me. That has been it up until tonight. Tonight she came over and we watched 2 movies and ate pizza. During the second movie I tried to give her a kiss. Nothing more, just a kiss. She backs away as though I was a cross and she was a vampire and tells me she is not ready for that yet. Okay, not my finest moment here I admit, but I tell her that it's been a year and a month and I have not tried one goddamn thing with her or forced her into anything, and yet she willingly F some other guy months ago, but here I am still waiting to hold hands. She of course starts crying, but this time I'm not as fast to apologize. I do apologize for the tone of my voice and tell her that I would never try and force her to do anything against her will, but honestly I feel like I have been kept on the outside. I've been cheated on. I don't give two craps what they call it. She willingly had unprotected intimacy with someone else, and I feel like I have done everything to try and be a supportive boyfriend. I tell her that honestly I don't want her to text me until I decide what I'm going to do. I don't want to be unfair to her, but by the same token a year is a long time and we are really no closer to being back to normal than we were 6 months ago, and I have no idea how long this will go on. Now here is the part where if you didn't think I was jerk before, you will now. I am just tired of not having intimacy. Look, I certainly understood not trying anything right afterwards and even months afterwards, but it's been over a year and we're not even holding hands, and frankly the fact that she has been with someone else since this incident is unaliving me inside. So I told her that I'm going to think things through and promise to talk with her next week sometime. But as it stands tonight I think I'm done. I love her. I hate the idiot who ruined both of our lives. I know this isn't her fault and I hate that I feel like crap no matter what I do. If I stay I'm going to be resentful, and even if she comes over tomorrow and has intimacy with me it will feel like either pity intimacy or desperation intimacy. But I know ending this will be punishing her for something that isn't her fault either. Advice? My god, this is way too long. TL, Dr. GF was roped over a year ago. In the meantime I have given her space and let her deal with things as she deems fit. We have not been together intimately since the attack, She on the other hand has been with another guy since. I think I'm done but looking for advice. As a student, what is the saddest thing you have found out about your teacher? In 7th grade, I had a history teacher named Mr. Andrews. He was famous throughout the school for how hard his class was. Mr. Andrews didn't mess around. He expected his students to do the work he assigned, no shortcuts. And he assigned a lot of work. Even though his class was tough, Mr. Andrews was a great teacher. He went above and beyond what the required course material was and gave really long, yet animated lectures, making the weirdest things interesting without losing our attention. He knew his stuff, which is something rare for public middle school teachers. History was genuinely his passion and he wanted to share that with us. Every Friday he'd bring out his guitar and sing traditional folk songs for us. The whole class would sing along, and it was a relief from the stress of all our other classes once a week. Still, his policy of assigning huge amounts of homework made him somewhat unpopular. Most students had mixed feelings about his class, myself included. One day, totally out of the blue, we took a break from our usual lesson plan. This was nearing the end of the year. Our middle school's guidance counselor was in the room, looking somber. As the bell to signal the start of class rang, she began to tell us how kind it is of Mr. Andrews to do this every year, and that we should be very respectful. She stepped aside and let Mr. Andrews begin to talk. A picture of 3 young adults was on the screen in front of class. Mr. Andrews told us those were his 3 children, 2 daughters and a son. He told us stories about his children when they were growing up, and how his son loved breakdancing. We were all confused at this point, but we knew that this was serious so we listened attentively. He fast-forwarded to the future. His eldest daughter was getting married. One Wednesday, he got a call from his daughter, very seriously, telling him to come home. He thought there might have been a slight hitch in the wedding planning, so he wasn't too concerned. But when he arrived home, he saw a bunch of police cars outside. Mr. Andrews went into his home and told us the last thing he could consciously remember was an officer telling him, "Mr. Andrews? We found your son inside his home deceased from what appears to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound. His son took his own life." Mr. Andrews said he didn't notice any warning signs. A week before he passed, he told his father he wanted to go to college to become a history teacher. Following his passing, it came out that he had a fiancée that no one knew about, but it was a complete shock to her too. The entire time Mr. Andrews told his son's story, I was paralyzed. I couldn't move or make a sound. I could hear the emotion in my teacher's voice. I could tell which parts were the hardest for him to get to, when his voice broke and he took long pauses before continuing. I could hear which parts would be ingrained in his mind forever. The story was so painful for him to relay, but he still told his students every year because he wanted us to know the effects that self-harm has on a family and a community. He wanted us to know that we can, and must, ask for help. I will always remember his story. From that day forward, I had nothing but complete respect for Mr. Andrews. When is a time you should have been in tears, but felt stone cold emotionless? My wife of 10 years cheated on me for a reason so ridiculous, I genuinely could not believe my ears. My wife went out with friends like usual last night. She normally came back around 2 a.m., so I stayed up waiting. The hours ticked by with no word from her. By 4 a.m., her phone went straight to voicemail. I was sick with worry, but she finally stumbled through the door at 6:47 a.m. She came through in a tight dress and mesh leggings I had never seen, makeup smeared across her face. Relief flooded me for half a second before I took in her disheveled state. My heart dropped. "Were you assaulted?" She shook her head. I didn't know whether to feel relieved or more worried. "Then where were you?" She shrugged, avoiding my eyes. "You know what I was doing." The truth hit me like a freight train. She cheated. Who was it? Some guy from the club. "I'm sorry." She yawned and began tearing up in her drunken state. "I'm tired. Let's not fight now." She slinked off to bed without another word. Numb with shock, I watched her pass out in bed. My mind raced, questions piling up that I wasn't sure I wanted answered. How long has this been going on? Was this the first time? I knew then this marriage was over. But before I left for good, I needed the truth. I packed a suitcase as the questions scrolled through my mind on repeat. By the time she woke, bleary-eyed, I was ready. She started crying when she saw the packed bags. "I'll do anything to fix this. We can work through this together, I promise." I shook my head. "The truth. Now. Or we're done." She took a shaky breath. "It was just a one-time mistake. I never meant to hurt you. Don't lie to me again." "How long?" The tears came faster. "A few times over the years. But it was just meaningless, I promise." Meaningless to her, maybe. But she had shattered my world without a thought. "Did you even use protection?" She nodded, unconvincingly. "Do your friends cheat too then?" "Some have." She refused to say which ones. I vowed to message every friend's partner as a warning. "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why would you do this?" I braced myself. I needed variety. I was speechless. She did it for fun. For thrills. Not because I was lacking, simply because she felt like it. Her cold, detached tone chilled me to the bone. Her sudden shifts were unsettling. The woman I loved was gone, replaced by this unrecognizable person who betrayed me without a shred of guilt. I'd had enough. I didn't even react. I simply called her mom and told her everything before grabbing the last of my things and leaving. In my car, I ignored 100 texts ranging from insults to begging to random photos of us. I canceled accounts, changed passwords and found a place to crash. I drove away in disgust, but troubled by her strange changes in demeanor. The life I knew was gone, but her unusual behavior lingered in my mind. Why was she going back and forth between uncontrollable tears to stone-cold responses? A few weeks passed before I spoke with her family. Her mother was distraught, blaming herself for missing the signs. Apparently, my ex had struggled with mental illness for years, hiding her symptoms out of fear and shame. Her erratic actions began to make a terrible kind of sense. Her family begged me to return, swearing she would get help. But the damage was already done. My heart had hardened, unable to forget her cruelty in those final moments. I knew the woman I loved was buried deep within herself, and I was no match for the demons she faced.